How do we put the values of I/O tags into a historical database? This may come as a surprise. The D2000 has a dedicated object called historical value for this. These historical values are handled by the D2000 archive process, which is again their parent. So we will create historical values for archiving of our I/O tags. These are called primary historical values. Then we can create statistical historical values over these primary historical values, for example 1 minute averages. And we can use calculated historical values to add 2 of these values. So, how do we put our I/O tags into archive? It's as easy as selecting one or more and clicking the archive button. The first time when you run this for the first time, you get an error that we have not specified any archive name, so we will select this one. We get only one process and click OK. Sorry. I have to get back to the settings. Okay, I'm here. Now I will again click the archive button, and now I'm configuring a historical value. The name is derived from my name of the I/O tag, just the prefix is not M like measured point, but H like historical value. On the archiving tab, I see that this is the purpose of the archive is to archive the object values, and here is my object. I could click publish values so that the historical value will copy the value of I/O tag. Let's look at the time parameters. You can see that the default history depth for an object is over 12 months. Let's change this to 6. This history depth can be specified individually for any historical value. It's often useful to use filters for archiving to avoid archiving of small changes. So let's set the filter to 0.1 and let's click the save. You can see that the value of the historical value is changing and it's copying the I/O tag. Let's go to the historical values and let's create another one by copying the 0, 0, 0. Of course, I have to change the object that I want to archive. Okay, I'm done. So I created my 2 primary historical values. What if we need to calculate a 1 minute averages of these objects? We'll create the new historical value, let's say Modbus client 00 average. Okay. I'll again click use sample, then go to archiving and change the purpose that it is calculated. We want to calculate the statistical function over primary historical value. So the source has to be historical value. If I click save, I get an error because the source must be a historical value, not the I/O tag. So this is my source, H Modbus 00. On the time parameters tab, I will change the period to 1 minute because I want 1 minute average. And on the last tab, I will select, for example, weighted average is what I want to calculate. When I click the save, the average is automatically calculated for the past minute. So you can see it here. Notice that the primary historical values have timestamp, it's 1507 something, but this one has 1506. So the timestamp is equal to the beginning of the previous minute. This can be configured here in the time parameters, whether to store the begin or an end of the period. Okay. Again, I can select this historical value and create a new tag, and I'll copy it to 01, and I will modify only the source of the historical value. Okay, so I get my two primary historical values and two statistical historical values. Now we can create a sum of these averages. Let's call the object, for example, modulus client 0001 average sum. Okay. We'll create the purpose of the archive to calculate archive values by a defined statement. Okay, and the statement is similar to evaluated tag. However, all the objects have to be historical values. So I'll take the average of 00 and 01. Okay, and I'll click save. Okay, so I get my two primary historical values, my two averages, and one calculated value. Actually, I could do something similar with an evaluated tag, as I showed you before. I could create an evaluated tag which would add these two averages. So the same expression would be in evaluated tags as is here in the historical calculated tag, the same expression. However, and then I could put this evaluated tag into archive, but I would use two tags instead of one. That's the one difference. And another difference, so I can say one tag, another more important difference is the value integrity feature that I mentioned to you before. I'll demonstrate it to you. Let's start a human interface, and again the default name and password has to be entered. Let's open the historical values archives. Let's open the 00, the average, and the sum, all three of them. Okay, so the sum, the primary archive, the sum, and the average and the sum. Now I see that the sum is calculated for example 308 time. So let me find some value 308, let's say 308003. I will modify this value. Okay, from 50,000 I will manually add two zeros. Okay, so now I modify the value. You can notice that the user modified archive flag is has been set, so I know that this is not a value from the communication, but somebody played with it. Now when I click the refresh button, let's see what happens to the average, which is for the 308 29,000. Okay, and you see that the average has grown to 120,000. When I refresh the data in the sum, I can also see that for 308 the sum has changed from something about 60,000 to 150,000. This is the value integrity. The archive, when you change the value of some primary historical value, it tracks all the depending objects and it recalculates them so that the results are correct. So when I again changed my value back to 50,000, the user modifier flag remains, and I can refresh and see 308 is back to some 29,000 and the sum is back to some around 60,000. This automatic recalculation can be suppressed if needed. When I edit the object, I could change the calculation from continuous to on demand. In that case, only when you explicitly command the archive, it will be calculated or recalculated. Now, imagine that I want to do similar arithmetics with other Modbus tags repeatedly. Do I have to create multiple averages and multiple sums? Well, I don't. We've got something better, and it's called structured variables. Well, this is the end of my presentation. However, I sincerely hope it is not an end of your work with IPES of the 2000 system. Quite the opposite, it should be the beginning of your exploration of the 2000 system. Please bear in mind that what I showed you today is just a small fragment of the 2000 capabilities. So don't hesitate to use our online documentation, and if you can't find the answer here, you can contact us via email or ask on our community forum.